What's up guys, welcome back to Fancy Goldfish Fanatics. Today is episode 3 of setting up our monster marine aquarium, so make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Hey Fanatics family, welcome back. As always, check out those links in the description. If you're from the USA, make sure to check out Jimmy Goldfish USA and use code JimmyGF at the checkout to get 10% off your order. And if you're from the UK, just like me, make sure to check out Star Fisheries. They have an absolutely huge selection of fancy goldfish, potentially the largest in Europe, and they can offer nationwide postage on their fish and supplies. So we're going to get straight into today's video. As you've seen in the past videos, we have got all of the rock, we've got all of the sand in position, and now we're going to be speaking about the equipment and the setup of the tank. So I'm going to spin the camera around and we're going to have a closer look. As you can see, we've got all of the equipment down on the right side of the tank, and it's currently hidden by the ficus plant on the right, and we're going to get sort of a box to cover it as well, as I don't like to see all the wires everywhere. You may have noticed that really large air pump, and finally I'm going to tell you what that is going to be used for. And if you haven't already guessed, that is actually going to be used to power the water back into the tank from the filter, and this is called an airlift. Now you may be wondering what that tall pipe is sticking out the top, and I've actually tried to combine an airlift and a protein skimmer into the same concept, same design. We've also got the wave makers on the rear, which have been hidden by the rocks so you can't see them from the front of the tank, and on the top there you can see the return from the airlift. Now this is definitely going to be a trial and error project. I've never seen anyone do an airlift on an aquarium actually, and especially not on a marine tank. I'm going to talk about the airlift a little bit more in a future video where I can really talk about it a bit more in depth, but that is the basic understanding of the filter. The water flows in through some foam, through the refugium, and then back into the tank from the airlift. Here you can see this is the final scape, and now we have the end of the RO tubing into the tank, which we are going to be filling it up with. I actually used a few vessels of water and collected RO over quite a few days leading up to the big fill, which meant that I could fill it up much faster than intended. So it didn't take a huge amount of time in the end, but it did take quite a few days to do. So here are the first drops entering the tank, and you can see it slowly filling up very slowly. And I've actually got a bag of carbon that I'm going to place into the tank to remove any impurities. I've also got some zeolite. Zeolite is really good at removing any ammonia buildup we get, and also it is good at removing heavy metals from the water. Finally, I've got a large bag of roller phos, and this is going to help remove any phosphate, anything that leaches out from the rocks. I want to get out of the tank before we put salt in. As you can see, the tank is really starting to fill up now. We've got it around 60% full, I'd say. As you can see, we've got all of the live rock, all of the sand in, the filters built in, and I thought as the tank is starting to fill up now, I thought I would talk a little bit more about it in detail, because I really have sort of rushed over all of the equipment and everything that's going on in this tank, and I haven't really explained it so much, so to say. So the rock we've got in here is a really porous rock, and this is what we use to house the beneficial bacteria. I believe it's called a Berlin method, where you use lots of live rock or dead rock that will become alive, and the bacteria colonies will live around, on and inside this rock to process the waste of the ammonia, the nitrite into nitrate. And then eventually in some anaerobic spots potentially, we can even have nitrate consuming bacteria to complete the full nitrogen cycle. Now, I spoke briefly about the return and the filter, and basically the return and filter is an airlift style system, and that is in that far back corner. The water flows over the weir down through the filter fleece, through the filter foam, and then into this large section that will be filled with different macroalgae. Now these macroalgae will reduce and remove nutrients like nitrate, phosphate and other nutrients from the water, so we can get a natural filtration technique. Many of us goldfish keepers use plants such as pothos, duckweed, water lettuce, etc. to help clarify the water and remove the pollutants naturally from it as well. So that is what the aim of the refugium is. There's 5 kilos of biohome in the bottom, which will hopefully contain lots of beneficial bacteria, just like the rocks as well. And then once the airlift is running, water comes up the pipe, the air stones are pushing air to the top of the pipe, and then the water flows back through with the use of air. But as I mentioned previously, I'm going to do a full video all about airlifts because they have so many benefits. A few key benefits of using an airlift system is increased oxygen, decreased CO2, lower, cheaper energy saving. So it definitely will save you on your bills, low number of moving parts, no maintenance, essentially no maintenance, and it is much easier to maintain as well. So they are a few of the key benefits of the airlift system. So once the tank is full, this has just got our filtered RO water in it currently, and it is just filling up. It's taking absolutely ages, but what I'm going to do after that, I'm going to let it run for around 24 hours with the wave makers on, which are behind the rocks at the back, and the airlift running, so I can see how the system is running. That will slowly bring it up to room temperature. Then I will get the heater on and I will slowly add the salt into the mix. I haven't shown you the salt just yet, but we will get onto that further in this video or potentially the next video. So we're going to get this completely full, get it all up and running, and then I'll catch you after that and we can have a little close look at how the filter's working and a little bit more of a close look at the equipment we've got on the system. And then hopefully in the video after this, we will start adding some livestock to the aquarium.
One eternity later.
After many days, as you can see, the tank is finally full. I am so happy that it's finally full. It's taken so long to fill this tank up, filtering it with the RO unit. So as you can see, we've got all of the water in the tank and I've actually got the system running now. So the airlift is running and we've got the wave makers running. The heater is now on, so it's starting to heat up the tank. So the next step is to start putting some salt into the aquarium. Now I'm really glad because the airlift is working really well as I hoped. However, we need to add the salt, and that is going to play a big change and a big part in if this airlift is going to be successful. Obviously the bubble size really depends on, with the salt, the bubble size is going to really depend how much flow we can push through this and whether those large bubbles actually work with the salt water. I'll kind of explain further in the airlift video, and we'll really have to have a look if it's going to work properly. And then as you can see over top, we're actually building a skimmer into the airlift system, which is awesome. So we're going to have some pipe work, which hopefully will have a big collection vessel to collect all the skimmate that the skimmer produces. Now I don't know if it's going to work. As I said previously, this is quite trial and error, but next we can get the salt into the tank and then we will have this episode wrapped up. So as you'll be able to see here, we've got our filter, the water is flowing through the weir and then into this sponge. There will be some filter fleece on top and the sponge is currently floating because it is new and full of bubbles. You should be able to see the flow that our airlift is pushing the water all the way across the tank, and we've really got a good flow. So ideally the bubbles will rise up the top here and then this pipe will be moved and there will be a collection vessel down here where the skimmate will flow down into it. Now I don't know if it's going to work, it is a bit trial and error. We're going to have to play around with the heights of the pipe and how much foam is hopefully produced. But for now, we're going to start getting the salt into the system. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to put the salt into the filter section and the airlift should slowly mix it within the tank. I think we're going to need around 1.5 to 2 buckets of salt, and I've got Red Sea Coral Pro salt. I'll just get it now and show you what it looks like. Here is the salt we have. It is the Red Sea's Coral Pro salt. It's going to really have a high level of calcium, magnesium and KH for when we add our corals. If we are going to add quite a lot of corals, we will need to add some buffering agents to the tank and some macro and micro elements, but we'll get onto that much further down the line when we start to do that for the reef. So I'm going to start mixing this salt in now, mix it into the water, and then I reckon it's going to take around a couple of hours to fully dissolve all of the salt. I've got actually 3 buckets in total because I wasn't quite sure how much we're going to need, and I will need some for some potential water changes in the future as well. So we're going to start adding this now, and then we can, after that, we'll be able to check if the protein skimmer works properly or if this whole system is going to need to have a big change or not. So I'm going to crack on with this now and let's get it done. As you can see, all of the salt is finally in the tank. I think we used around 45 kilos of Red Sea Coral Pro salt in the end, so quite a lot of salt for the system, and the system is now heating up. I'm going to run this tank a little bit cooler than most reef tanks. I'm going to run it around 23.5 degrees, which will also help with the energy costs that we will be incurring in the winter as the price is rising very significantly. So it's going to be running at about 23.5 degrees. I've also got the airlift running and it's running really well. I'm super happy with it, and it looks like it is starting to form some sort of foam and some bubbles. So I'm going to show you what the filter system is looking like now, and then I'll probably in the future videos I will talk about the system setup in a little bit more depth, and then as well we can start adding a few bits of livestock to the tank. Quickly, I'm just going to let you know that I'm planning to use a few bits of live rock from a few friends' tanks to get this tank seeded, so we shouldn't have too much of a nitrogen cycle to start off with. Any ammonia should be consumed by the live rock pieces that we put in, and I'm just going to hide those near the back, and those bacterial cultures should start to cover the rock. We'll also likely get some really dirty algae stages. We'll probably get a huge diatom outbreak from the silicates, from the rock and sand, and then also loads of hair algae. So I know there is going to be a real dirty stage and ugly phase to come, but we've got to get through it, and we will be able to start adding some corals and some inverts, some snails, some crabs, etc. to really start getting this tank up and running, and then hopefully in maybe a couple of months we will be able to add our first fish. So I'm going to quickly show you what the system of the filtration system is looking like, and then that will be the end of the video. Here we can see the filtration system working. I'm just going to pull back the lids to show you what the airlift is actually looking like now. You can see we've got quite a lot of collection of foam on the surface, and I'm hoping once I start to adjust the protein skimmer / airlift, we can actually collect this foam into a skimmate and into a collection vessel. Now, sorry you couldn't really see down the pipe, but there is foam starting to collect in there, and once we've got some livestock, some nutrients, some fish, some snails, some hermits, etc., they'll start to be producing that waste which we will be able to collect, and that will allow the skimmer and airlift to bed in. Here you can see all of the flow going across the surface, and it's really nice to know currently we don't have any micro bubbles in the tank. Thank you all for watching as always. If you've got any questions, suggestions, comments, leave a comment down below, and if you want to have your Fancy Goldfish Aquarium featured on the channel, then send me an email, fancygoldfishfanatics@gmail.com, and get in touch and we can get that on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.